You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Picture this. It's 1,928, midnight, and most Californians are sound asleep. Suddenly, a massive wall of water crashes through the San Francisco Valley, swallowing entire towns in minutes. You might be asking, how could a dam celebrated as a marvel of modern engineering fail so quickly and so completely? Let me set the St. Francis Dam, once thought invincible, collapsed without warning, instantly rewriting the lives of thousands. Today, we'll uncover what really happened that fateful night and why the story of the St. Francis Dam collapse still haunts engineers and historians alike. Now, you might be thinking, was it just bad luck, or was something more sinister at play? This is a tale of ambition, oversight, and the power of water, a force that, when unleashed, can devastate even the best-laid human plans. So, what caused this disaster? Was it a design flaw, construction error, or something deeper? Stick with me, because the answer might surprise you. Before we dive into the technical side, let's remember, the St. Francis Dam collapse remains one of the deadliest civil engineering failures in American history, over 400 lives lost in a single night. The scars, both literal and psychological, still mark California's landscape. With that, let's rewind the clock and explore why water simple, essential, and sometimes deadly has always been at the heart of California's greatest challenges. Let's talk about water scarcity. Did you know Southern California is naturally arid? Its rivers and creeks simply couldn't keep up with the surging population of early 20th century Los Angeles. Enter two key terms: aqueduct, a massive man-made water channel and reservoir, a giant storage pool. Both are crucial for moving and saving water. Visionary engineer William Mulholland spearheaded the Los Angeles aqueduct, siphoning water from the Owens River hundreds of miles away. Imagine trying to pipe water across inhospitable mountains no small feat. But even this colossal project wasn't enough. LA's growth demanded not just more water, but a way to manage its flow, especially during emergencies or droughts. Let me ask, what happens when you rush to build a city without first securing its most basic resource? You get a ticking time bomb disguised as progress. And so, the stage was set for the St. Francis Dam, a structure designed to store and regulate the city's lifeblood. But as we'll see, haste and hubris can be a dangerous mix. When it came time to build the St. Francis Dam, Mulholland faced enormous pressure. Speed was everything. He adapted existing blueprints, but here's where two terms matter: abutment, the side supports of a daemon bedrock, the solid ground beneath. Skimping on site surveys meant they missed fractured rock under the foundation, a decision that would prove catastrophic. Now, you might ask, why not just build a bigger, stronger base? Good question. Mulholland's design aimed for impressive height, 205 feet, but didn't proportionally widen the base. Like balancing a skyscraper on stilts, it looked sturdy, but the stability was all wrong. Sometimes, what you can't see is what gets you. The canyon's geology, a hodgepodge of weak shale and fractured rock, wasn't fully understood. In the race to quench LA's thirst, thoroughness lost out to urgency. Let me tell you, even today, engineering shortcuts can haunt us for decades. Foundations aren't glamorous, but they're everything. The St. Francis Dam's grand ambitions were perched on a fragile base, a disaster waiting to happen, hidden in plain sight. The dam's construction was a whirlwind. Picture cranes hoisting buckets of wet concrete, workers racing against time. Two key concepts: concrete pourth process of layering wet concrete and spillway, the overflow channel for excess water. Both were executed in rapid succession with little margin for error. Crews cleared the land, compacted earth, and sealed natural caves with concrete. The goal? Prevent water from sneaking through the foundation. But remember, a foundation's only as good as the ground it sits on. As layers rose, the dam took shape, finally completed in 1926, towering above the valley. But beneath its imposing exterior, subtle cracks and weaknesses were already forming. Now you might be wondering, didn't anyone notice these early warning signs? The answer is complicated. There were cracks, yes, but at the time, they seemed typical for a dam of that scale. The scaffolding came down, and the St. Francis Dam stood ready to tame the San Francisco Creek, unaware that its foundations were fatally compromised. March 1926 water began trickling into the new reservoir. Engineers watched for two technical terms: seepage water leaking through or under a structure and contraction crack, small splits caused by concrete shrinking as it cures. Both showed up early, but were mostly dismissed as normal. A few leaks were sealed with pipes, and drainage systems were added to relieve hydrostatic pressure, the upward push of water beneath the dam. On paper, St. Francis was one of the driest dams of its size. Yet water continued to find its way through, especially near an old fault line on the west side. Now, let's pause. If you saw water seeping from under a massive dam, would you shrug it off? Or would alarm bells ring? In 1926, those bells were muffled by optimism and a lack of precedent. The cracks and leaks kept coming, but with each one, the response was to patch and move on. The reservoir kept rising, and so did the risks. Let me remind you, in engineering, ignoring small warnings can lead to catastrophic consequences. Here, the evidence was literally leaking out for all to see. It wasn't just nature threatening St. Francis. During California's infamous water wars, sabotage was real. Picture dynamited aqueducts and anonymous threats. Two terms: aqueduct sabotage, the deliberate destruction of water infrastructure, and reservoir drawdown, the rapid draining of stored water. In May 1927, major sections of the LA aqueduct were blown up, forcing the city to rely on St. Francis as its only northern water source. Paranoia ran high. Authorities guarded the dam day and night, fearing further attacks. Now, you might wonder, could sabotage have played a role in the collapse? Many at the time believed so, but official investigations later ruled out foul play at the St. Francis site. Still, the water wars amplified the dam's importance and stress. Reservoir levels fluctuated wildly as water was withdrawn to meet emergency needs, putting new strains on an already delicate structure. As tension peaked, minor cracks and leaks seemed trivial compared to the threat of sabotage. But ultimately, nature not sabotage would have the final say. As 1928 dawned, the St. Francis Reservoir neared capacity. Fresh cracks zigzagged across the dam surface, and new leaks appeared, some discharging muddy water, a sign of erosion beneath. Let's define. Uplift pressure, the force of water pushing upward on a structure and abutment fracture, a crack where the dam meets the canyon wall. Inspectors noticed a growing leak near the west abutment, at times surging unpredictably. The color and flow were alarming. Mud in the water can mean foundation erosion, a red flag for engineers. Now, you might be thinking, surely someone sounded the alarm? Maintenance crews did report concerns, and Chief Engineer Mulholland inspected the site. His verdict: the cracks and leaks were normal for a dam this size, and he considered the structure safe. In hindsight, these were flashing warning signs. But with no precedent for such a collapse and pressure to keep water flowing, the alarms were largely ignored. This is a classic case of confirmation bias, the tendency to interpret warnings as harmless simply because disaster feels unthinkable. In moments like this, history shows us the cost of complacency. March 12, 1928, just before midnight, disaster struck. Without warning, the St. Francis Dam disintegrated. Two technical terms: hydraulic failure, the sudden loss of structural integrity due to water pressure and flood wave, the massive surge of water that follows. Eyewitnesses heard a low rumble, like rocks rolling down a hill. Within minutes, a 140-foot-high wall of water surged down the valley, obliterating everything in its path. Powerhouses, homes, and entire communities were swept away. No one at the dam survived to describe the collapse itself. The flood wave traveled at 12 miles per hour, flattening towns and cutting power to Los Angeles. Now imagine, it's the middle of the night and a flood you never saw coming is on top of you. Warnings came too late for most. In the aftermath, the landscape was unrecognizable. By dawn, the Pacific Ocean was choked with debris and the remains of the valley's towns. The scale of destruction was nearly unimaginable. This was no slow leak, but total catastrophic failure. As the water receded, the true horror emerged. Over 400 people were dead, entire families vanished, and bodies were found as far as the Mexican border. Two terms here: disaster response, the coordinated effort to rescue and recover after catastrophe and infrastructure failure when public works collapse with deadly results. Rescuers raced against time, but the devastation was overwhelming. Telephone operators, Police and even motorcycle officers tried to warn those downstream, but the flood moved faster than word could travel. Newspapers nationwide splashed the tragedy across their front pages. The public demanded answers. Who was responsible? Could this have been prevented? Now, you might ask, how could a disaster on this scale happen with so little warning? The truth is, warning systems were primitive and trust in technology was high. The public's faith in progress was shattered overnight. In the aftermath, California's approach to engineering, oversight, and public safety would never be the same. In the wake of the disaster, multiple commissions launched investigations. Two technical terms: forensic engineering studying failed structures to understand cause and geologic instability when the Earth itself can't support a structure. The consensus? The dam's foundation was fatally flawed fractured rock on the west and an old landslide on the east. Some experts argued that a leak developed on the west side, leading to a domino collapse. Others thought water pressure on lubricated rocks caused the dam to shift and fail. You may be wondering, was this just a tragic accident or a preventable mistake? The official verdict: an error in engineering judgment. Mulholland and his team couldn't have known the full risks, but their failure to thoroughly study the site sealed the dam's fate. Conspiracy theories about sabotage circulated but were dismissed by investigators. The real villain was human error amplified by unchecked ambition. The collapse forced a reckoning. No longer could a single engineer's word be the final authority. Oversight, peer review, and rigorous standards became the new norm. The St. Francis Dam disaster left a permanent mark on California. Two critical terms: regulatory reform changes to oversight and rules after a crisis and engineering ethics, the responsibility to safeguard lives through sound decisions. Mulholland, once a hero, retired in disgrace, but stoically accepted blame, saying, "If there was an error in human judgment, I was the human." The disaster spurred new laws. Dams could no longer be built or operated without independent review. State agencies and peer review boards became mandatory, drastically improving public safety. The ruins of the dam were demolished to discourage souvenir hunters, and replacement reservoirs were built with better oversight and stronger foundations. Now, let me pose a question. What can we learn from this tragedy nearly a century later? The answer is clear: never underestimate nature, never shortcut science, and always put public safety first. From the heart of Poland, thank you for joining me on this journey through history. I'm Ryan Soch, and I hope the story of the St. Francis Dam reminds us all, ambition without caution can be an invitation to disaster. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.